two, one, and we're live for a new episode of the Electrek Podcast. I am Fred Lambert, your host, and I apologize for the podcast being delayed by 2 hours this week. Seth Wintraub was joining me live from Arizona right now. He's drinking beer too, so should be an interesting podcast. A kind of a last minute trip to go test out none other than the Hummer EV out of the beautiful Arizona desert. How's it going, Seth?
It was an amazing day. I can't
Yeah.
even tell you guys about it.
All right. We were supposed to have David from the Tesla Weld podcast to start out the show to talk about the event in Germany this week at Gigafactory Berlin, which he attended. But we knew that it could be a problem because we had to delay the podcast by 2 hours. David is obviously in Germany. It's late right now, so he might join us last minute. It's not clear right now, but we are gonna assume not so. But we're gonna still talk about the event, obviously, because there was a speech from Elon that gave us some information and whatnot. So we're gonna get to that in a second. But let's start out with since it's extremely fresh in your mindset. You're gonna post a full first drive off-roading review of the HummerEV in 2 weeks, but you can give us your first impression, just fresh off the test drive right now.
Yeah. So this is an incredible vehicle. We've heard tons about it. We've seen some drives, but we haven't gotten in it, and now we have, and it's quite amazing. So the 0 to 60 time, they have their whole launch thing. It's called Watts to Freedom, which is a little bit of a theme there. There's a little bit of a
freedom,
America. Yeah, there's a bunch of that stuff. It's also got like a moon theme, so it's kind of all over the place.
What, anyway, the moon?
Yeah, they did. It's like the moon colors. They've got like moon speaker grills, and I guess GM helped build the lunar rover.
Okay.
Anyway, the thing goes 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. It's crazy. Because it's a truck and there's a lot of suspension. The front kind of goes up. It's kind of feels like a boat.
Yeah, we've seen one Papa Willie on video.
Yeah. So, I don't know how often you're going to do that. It's quite fun to do. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of videos.
It's like launching a house 0 to 60.
It is. So that thing is 9,000 pounds. Like, it's got a over 200, like I think 205, 204 kilowatt hour battery. So it's it's over two like Model S batteries. It's crazy. It's just a house on wheels, as you say, 9,000 pounds. But, it's got 1,000 horsepower, like absurd amounts of torque, can tow like anything, plenty of range, like 329 EPA, and it was doing better than EPA for me today. So great vehicle. So yesterday we got to take it out on a little track, did the Watts to Freedom 0 to 60. And we got to talk to a lot of the people who built the vehicle. A lot of cool stuff, just tons of like little gimmicky things, some good, some bad. It's got like T-tops, the old like Camaros and Firebirds and Trans Ams or whatever.
Are they easy to remove? And is there a place in the car that's specifically fit for the tops?
Yeah, so it was actually super easy to remove. Takes like 10 seconds each panel, and there's 4 panels. And then there's a kit you can get for the frunk, which is also quite big, that you can just slide them in there. And I would say it probably took less than 5 minutes to remove all the tops and put them in the front container. And then you can actually remove the T part as well, but that takes like a bolt. I think like 4 bolts in there.
A wrench or something.
Yeah, I tried driving it on the freeway with the top down, and it's quite windy. It was super hot today, going 85 miles per hour with a super not wind resistant vehicle.
Built like a brick.
Yeah, kind of beat up a little bit on the highway. So I pulled over and put this stuff back on. It wasn't worth it. But I got some great drone shots, which will be in the review, which is going to be in early April. So it's a phenomenal vehicle. I have some issues with it because like it's got a 200 kilowatt hour battery that could probably make 4 Tesla Model 3 standard range,
Hmm.
like you're basically taking 3 cars off the road if you get one of these, 3 electric vehicles off the road, because
Hmm.
it's such a big battery.
Well, they won't make that much. I mean, especially not for now. Like, it's,
Right.
if you people remember the HummerEV as a very strict schedule, where right now they only delivering the launch model. And I don't know if you talked, were you able to get them to say how many they delivered so far? But based on the
Um,
recall from last a few weeks ago, it looks like they delivered only 10 as of
they
the end
said
of January.
they were going to cross the 100 barrier around now. So
Okay, I mean that would make sense. Yeah.
and they said they're gonna have 1,000 by the end of the year, or they're gonna be in the thousands by the end of the year.
Yeah, because they're moving away from the launch edition to the same thing as the launch edition, but not officially launch edition. And then the smaller, lower battery pack, less motor version are going to come next year. And the base version only comes in 2024, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, and they were actually saying that the battery size is going to be the same. They're just going to have, smaller wheels, and the range is actually going to go up towards 400 miles. So,
But even for the base version, they're going to have the 205 kilowatt hour battery pack.
I don't know about the base version.
Because the base version, it starts at like 80, I think, something like that.
Yeah, I
So.
think they're going to have a few trim models, and then there's the interior of that is, it's just like really nice inside. I
Mhm.
mean, it's $150,000 car, right? Like, it's going to be to the nines. Um, I kind of think, like, on a high level, this is just a halo electric car. It's kind of what the Roadster was a little bit, like, it better than any internal combustion engine truck. And I think that's the big point. And people that can afford this, maybe it's their fifth or eighth car. You know, it's probably not going to save the world, but I think the fact that the best truck in the world, they call it the super truck, and I kind of agree
Mhm.
with them on this. The best truck in the world is electric. I think that's great. Um, I should say one more thing. Probably the coolest part about it is the four-wheel steering. Um,
Mhm.
Going off-roading with four-wheel steering, like hitting turns and stuff,
Mhm.
it is like, never had an experience like that before.
So
Um,
is it a mode that you activate and then it does it automatically as you optimize it on a software basis while you drive?
yep.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
you can lock out the back if you want, or you
Mhm.
can have it turn as much as the
Mhm.
front wheels, or a little bit more, or a little bit less. There's a lot of like intelligence, and of course you can do the crab walk, which is kind of like going diagonal.
Mhm.
But that's kind of a gimmick,
Yeah.
and even GM says that. So,
Mhm.
but the four-wheel steering is the real deal. Like, you can turn that thing really in a small
But so
radius.
how's the off-roading though? Because again, it is a 9,000 pound vehicle, so that's so hard on the suspension when
Yeah.
you're like, and there it seems to be significant travel on that suspension. So I don't know what kind of it has to be. It's not a off the shelf type of thing. Like, they have to
No, it was.
custom build something insane.
I actually asked that exact question, and they were like, "Yeah, there's nothing too crazy
Mm,
about this." And he was like, "Remember, we build very big vehicles." And I was like, "Okay, so
mm,
they like F350, 450, whatever." Not, oh, that's the Ford
well,
version.
that's Ford, but yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
kind of, they build those kind of vehicles.
But
So,
are those the biggest gas powered pickup trucks from GMC? Are the 9,000 pound? I'm just not that familiar with the pickup truck at that level, but
nine
like,
thousand pounds is a big vehicle. I mean, that's like a cement truck.
yeah, I mean, 200 pound. Which begs a question, because I mean, I'm sure that the Roadster, if it ever comes out, it's gonna be nothing like the original one that came out, but that was unveiled. But the one that was unveiled that you test drove, well, not test drove, you got the 0 to 60 ride in it. That was supposed to have a 200 pound, not 200 pound, 200 kilowatt hour battery pack in it.
Yeah, I don't
So
know.
how much did that thing weigh then?
I don't
So
know.
obviously it's a much smaller vehicle too at the same time, but but how much of the Hummer's weight is in the excessiveness of the vehicle versus just having a giant battery pack?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the Roadster really had a
Mm,
200 watt hour battery or
mm,
kilowatt hour battery pack in it.
mm,
I mean, maybe they had
mm,
special small cells. I don't know. But the Hummer, I mean, it's like like a foot thick battery pack. It's like two packs on top of each other.
But that's what they said about the Roadster. They said it was two packs on top
That's
of
true.
each other. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they just did it tighter or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the Hummer, you can see like it's definitely a big pack. They have like cutaway versions of it, and it's basically like two Cadillac Lyriq packs on top of each other. And they have Ultium modules. There's 24 in there. There's 12 in the Cadillac, and like something like the Bolt will get like 4. So
And the huge pouch cells, right?
what's that?
The huge pouch cells.
Yeah, I think they're the LG pouch cells. I don't know. We can get a look at them specifically, but I think they're like the prismatic ones.
All right. Well, we're gonna keep an eye out for that review to come out first or second week of April. You said.
Yeah.
All right. We're gonna have all the details, all the pictures, and whatnot. But let's jump into what we were supposed to talk about with David, the event from Tesla earlier this week at Gigafactory Berlin. So it was a significant moment for Tesla. It was the launch of the first German-made, European-made Tesla vehicles. Of course, Tesla had in the past did the final assembly on the Model S and X in Europe at their Tilburg factory in the Netherlands, but that was really for tax reasons, and very minimal assembly was done there. This is a car built from the ground up in uh, Germany, outside of Berlin. And Elon was there for the event. He did a little speech, which gave us some information, and he end delivered about 30 cars, I think it was. I don't know how many was delivered total, but that's one thing I would have liked to ask David, if at the event itself we're able to get any information on kind of production capacity, because they haven't said anything in the actual presentation for it. But some of the interesting things that came out of Elon's speech, because he did two speeches. He did a little short speech when they actually hand over the car. Then he went outside and did a speech that sounded like was more about the employees there. So one was for employees and the customers, and then it was a little celebration for the employees for the start of production, which has been a tough thing to achieve. Obviously, in Germany, there was a lot of setbacks trying to get the final building approval and the environmental approval, but they finally did it, and now they are apparently completely in the clear for the first phase of the factory, which includes production capacity of up to 500,000 cars annually, and also I don't know if they set an amount on the battery cells they can produce there, but they have at least part of the production capacity for the cells. I think it might be 50 gigawatt hour, which would make sense with the capacity of vehicles that they plan to produce there. But Elon, speaking of batteries, Elon did answer some questions from employees, and one of the questions was about the materials, Tesla's sourcing of materials for battery cells, which is a big concern lately, especially with what's happening with nickel and lithium too. Lithium hydroxide, just like the prices are good. Well, people focus too much on one materials, and then the other, the background just keeps going up at the same time. It's something to keep an eye on. But with what happened with nickel in Russia, and Elon kind of laid out, he reiterated basically is Tesla's plan, which seems to be everyone's plan at this point, which is going to be to focus on LFP, on iron phosphate cathode for the lower range vehicle, the standard, we call Tesla called standard range. And then if you want to have longer range, it's going to be a nickel based cathode. And but then he added that he sees, I think there's an interesting potential for manganese. And the way he said it as a third option. So there would be an iron phosphate option, a cathode, a manganese cathode, and then a nickel based cathode. Because of course manganese can already be in. You can mix a nickel cathode and a manganese cathode. Cathode. That's NMC basically. That's what NMC is. NMC battery chemistry. But you can play with the percentage of that is manganese, or you can have 100% manganese cathode too. I think the first or one of the first regeneration of the Leaf at a 100% manganese cathode, which can get you a decent range too. But the way that Elon was talking about it, he was saying that there would be a new version of it that could probably fit in between the higher density, which probably always going to be nickel, and then the lower capacity, which is going to be iron phosphate. So something to keep an eye on. I looked at Tesla's patents, and I didn't see anything specific about the manganese battery or with the Tesla's battery research group in Canada, but it's something to keep an eye on for the future for sure. Another comment that he made there was about the colors. That's something that he's been talking about for um, a long time, that the Gigafactory Berlin is going to have the most advanced paint shop in the world. So now production has started. So show us what you got. I think production has started, but so far we only seen I think all the first vehicle that were delivered were all black, and looks like the same black that this is produced in China and in Fremont. But Elon did comment on that, and he said that the new colors are coming in the next few months, starting with the red here that is on his personal car. He added that it's going to be a 13-layer red. That's what creates the dimensionality of the color, the deepness of it. We reported a few months ago that Tesla added 3 colors to its app, the deep crimson multicode. So we think that's going to be it. Then Elon at the event this week also said that the silver is gonna, he called it the quicksilver. He said that it's not gonna be as many layered as the red one, probably 7 or 8, but it's still gonna feel to have a lot of dimensionality. So basically, especially when the different lighting situation, it's gonna look good. So he called this one a quicksilver. In the app leak, there was a mercury silver metallic that was mentioned, so maybe that's it. But there was also an Abyss blue multicode that was mentioned, and Elon didn't mention that during his speech. But he said it's
Mercury is called Quicksilver, so it makes sense.
Oh yeah, it is. Oh, good call. He said the Quicksilver, liquid silver. But yeah, so that's coming. He did mention that because that's something that Tesla has been criticized for in the past, where there's not many option for colors on this car. It used to be a lot more option on the Model S early on, but Tesla cut those down. And Elon reiterated why. He said it's the service issues. Is when you make a new color, you don't just have to think about making that color look good and be good for a long time. You have to service that color over time if there's repairs to be done, and everything. And that's you need to do that for years and years and years. So you need to think about what kind of impact it's going to have on your service team. So he made it sound like the new colors are going to be somewhat limited in the future. Something to keep in mind. I mean, it's more room for wraps. It's going to be going to wrap your car.
The wraps business is going to be big, right?
Yeah, especially with the Cybertruck, which is going to have even fewer color option, and by fewer I mean none. All right, the last thing that he did mention, not much to do with Berlin though, was the Cybertruck. So we kind of knew that already, but he clarified the timeline, because the last time that he gave an update on the timeline, he was quite vague about it. It was, of course, at this project roadmap update we were supposed to get in the last earning, which was barely anything really. All he did say was like, we're not going to launch any new cars in 2022 because of limitation in chip supply. We're going to focus on ramping up Model 3, Model Y. Then he said at the time that the Cybertruck would hopefully come next year if all goes well, which is a big ask. So now at the event this week, what he said is that Tesla is aiming to complete the development of the Cybertruck this year in order to be ready for production next year. So this is again, this is a clearer comment about starting production next year, but there's been rumors about Tesla aiming for a start of Cybertruck production early in 2023. So that would work with that comment, since complete development this year, be ready for production next year, be ready for next year. So people sort of trying to infer that he's talking about early next year. But again, this is still just a rumor, I think. But yeah, Tesla need the Cybertruck sooner rather than later. That's for sure. Because I mean, you've just been in a electric pickup truck today. Yep. Ford looks like it's going to stick to its plan to launch it later this year, the Lightning.
It
Rivian
just
is
moves
slowly
forward.
but surely ramping up.
Yep.
Um, and Ford greatly improve its production. Well, it's planned for production capacity so that there's going to be more truck next year when just starts its launch of Cybertruck. But that's where the Tesla fans still see Tesla as an advantage, is that no one is better at ramping up EV production as Tesla, which is true so far. So maybe that Tesla can still be first to volume production of electric pickup truck. Maybe. Of course, that depends what you consider volume production, because
Right.
Rivian is already producing them a few thousands a quarter at this point. So I don't know. Probably that's probably not volume production. Was it 1,000 a week? Is it volume production?
I don't know. I don't know.
Mhm. All right. Let's move on. Oh yeah, the master plan part 3. That was a big part of what we were talking about last week. Elon announced that. We were giving our own impression on what it could be about. This week, he did comment on what is going to be the focus on the master plan part 3. He said it's going to be to scaling to an extreme size. That was going to be the focus. But he also said that about Tesla, he said the main Tesla subjects will be scaling to extreme size, which is needed to shift humanity away from fossil fuels and AI. I don't know how. Uh, so okay, and AI is a separate subject. It's not to shift humanity to AI, right? My punctuation,
I think
English
so.
grammar is not perfect, so I don't know. But I think the way he wrote that, it's to mean the subjects are going to be scaling to extreme size, which is going to be needed to shift humanity away from fossil fuel, and another subject is going to be AI. So we were talking about Tesla bot, Tesla Optimus being a big part of the subject. So I think that's going to be it. Of course, with FSD is going to be the first application of Tesla's AI. But then scaling to an extreme size, I think that's going to be about supply chain, which is on everyone's mind, not just in the automotive industry, but in everything. But in the automotive industry, through the transition to electric vehicle, and specifically battery powered electric vehicle, it's a giant new supply chain that needs to be created. Well, it is being created, but it's like we've been saying for years, people have been underestimating the take rate of electric vehicle adoption massively. And now with the rise in gas prices, with Tesla being extremely successful, with new vehicle program like the Ford F-150 Lightning, just in the space of 6 months, they doubled it and then tripled it. Like people are seeing, okay, something is happening right now. The shift is happening much faster than people thought. We're gonna need to build that supply chain a lot faster. So I think we're gonna see is gonna see all the way down the line to new mining operation that's gonna be need to be financed. All the processes after that to create once you mine the lithium, you have to transform into lithium hydroxide. It's a whole process. Same thing for nickel. Nickel. It's not all the nickel that's battery grade too. So you have to mine battery grade nickel and then transform it. There's going to be a lot of things that need to happen. So I think Tesla's going to build out, laid out a better plan, which it kind of did at Battery Day in 2020, though it wasn't a focus. The focus was obviously 4680 and the manufacturing and design aspects of that cell to make it a big part of Tesla's supply chain. There was some part about mining. Tesla was getting into mining. We haven't heard much about that front since then, but I think it's going to be on a much bigger scale. And we've seen it lately. We've seen Tesla made a lot of contracts lately with junior mining companies, something they wouldn't necessarily do in the past. In the past, Tesla has been playing itself safe. Vale, Glencore, BHP, those giant companies that produce those minerals. But now lately, you can see Tesla's thinking about long term. All right, let's give some contracts to those junior mining companies that are in the process of building out a mine, so that with those contracts they can then find financing, because they know that, oh, there's an offtake agreement with Tesla. Tesla is a fairly secure company. Like they say they're gonna buy all batteries that they can get. So it's safe to say that if they can supply it, Tesla will buy it. So those offtake agreements are like money in the bank for those mining companies, and they can go, okay, then I can get financing for. I guess it's a capital extensive business. Like I mean, I follow it closely, and you see it. Companies that are trading right now on public markets for 20-30 million dollars, that have mining rights with feasibility studies that the mine could be worth like billions of dollars. But to get it there, you need to invest a billion of dollars. So how do you, how a 20 million to, let's say, $200 million company gets $1 billion for a business that doesn't exist yet? It's super hard to do. But if you have an offtake agreement like that from Tesla, from LG, from Panasonic, then you get things rolling. So I think there's going to be a lot more of that happening, because otherwise that $42,000 per ton price of nickel is not going to budge. It's only going to go up.
What are some? So we learned Tesla was going to do a manganese battery.
Mm.
What are some smaller or just companies that focus on manganese?
Well,
Manganese.
you have a lot of Vale is, I think, the biggest, if one of the biggest, if not the biggest producer of manganese in the world right now. Um, it also produces a ton of iron, a ton of nickel. It's a giant company. Um, but there's a lot of, so people are thinking about localization too. So now Tesla has a gigafactory in Texas, Nevada. They have Fremont. There's not a lot of production in the U.S. Around those places of manganese or every other mineral that you need to make a battery. So the important thing also is let's try to encourage local production to minimize logistic costs and also environmental costs that come with it. The problem, I'm not going to be naming like those small companies that try to do that, because I don't think it's worth it. But you can do your research, and there's plenty of them. But there's a chance that Tesla might give them contracts in the future. But right now, the safer bets are definitely the Vale and the BHP of this world. BHP, yeah, BHP. Those acronyms. All right. Hertz is adding the Model Y to its fleet after adding the Model 3. You remember that big 100,000 orders of Model 3s? Actually, it was an order of Model 3s and Model Y. So I think Hertz maybe have pulled the trigger a little bit too soon on that announcement. If you remember, like they did that, and then they're like, we're gonna get all the cars by the end of 2022. And then Tesla was like, are you? Like, I'm not so sure about that, because we're not giving you any deal. You're gonna get them as we can make them. So I think Hertz wised up a little bit, but now they confirmed that the deal for 100,000 Model 3s is actually 100,000 Model 3s and Model Y, which they're gonna start taking delivery of in the coming weeks. They're already listing them on their website, and I've been looking, because I'm going to the U.S. next month, and I'm gonna need a car, and I've been looking at Hertz as an option, but it's hard to find them. I mean, it looks like they have some of them, but because they definitely have some of them, but it looks like they're booked way ahead of time.
Yeah, and they probably focus in markets like San Francisco and California, generally
Yeah,
speaking,
yeah,
because that's where people really want to drive EVs, and there's lots of infrastructure.
yeah, exactly. But right now, you can choose from both the Model 3 and the Model Y on the website, even though Model Y, they are only starting to take delivery in the coming weeks. But like, if you're a company like Hertz, I think you take everything you can get at this point, because you're not losing any money on those cars. Basically, it's that the market is that crazy right now. So if you can buy them, buy them. And they just so happen, like, you would think that they probably only would buy Model 3 base Model 3s as a rental car. But if you can get the long range, get the long range, and you're gonna get your money's worth. You can sell it back in in a few months, and you get the same price basically for it. All right, we're going to move on from Tesla news, but just before we move on, just a reminder that at the end of the show, we're going to take your questions. So if you have a question right now, you can put them in the comment section right now. If you can put them in all caps, or with question in all caps before the question, that would be helpful for us to get through them. But let us know if you have any specific question or topic you want us to discuss at the end of the show, and we will. We just have a few more news items to get through before that, starting with the F-150 Lightning. Last week, we discussed the standard range version getting its APA ratings. Now, all the different versions got the APA ratings. Well, I say all the different versions. There's a lot of different trims, but really, it's about the battery pack. So you have the standard range battery pack, and then you have the extended range battery pack. That's all they do it. So the first one, they were aiming for the standard range to have 230 miles of range, which it did. We reported last week. So that was for the pro version of the trims. The You can also get it in XLT version and in Lariat version for the standard battery pack. So those all get 330 miles of range. So that's done. The extended range version, you can get it for the pro, but that's for fleet only, so commercial only. So that gets 20 more miles than expected. So they were aiming for 300 miles. It gets 220 miles of range, EPA rated range. So for the pro, that's just the fleet only, and that's the least expensive way to get the extended range. Otherwise, they make you add a bunch of option on it. Like I said, it was, if you want, for the consumer version, if you want the extended range, you gotta pay, like, I think it starts at $75,000, something like that. So the XLT gets 320 miles of range too, 20 more miles than expected. Lariat, 220 more miles. And then you have the Platinum version that gets 300 miles. So you lose some efficiency. I would assume that it comes with larger wheels, probably.
Yeah, that would definitely bring down the range.
Yeah, especially the bigger the vehicle. But yeah, Jim Farley thanked his engineering team for beating expectations. Again, it's not clear when the car exactly is going to be delivered, but it should be sooner rather than later, especially if it's already got its EPA rating. Um, the Lyriq also is going to get delivered soon, though they're still being kind of vague about that. But production officially started this week in Tennessee. The first Cadillac Lyriq are rolling off the production line right now. Like we reported previously, when they opened the orders, they claimed they have sold out in 19 minutes or something like that, but they never actually said how many they were gonna they how many they open up for reservation. So it's basically meaningless. Now what they're saying is that they are reopening the orders in May. So between now the production starting and whenever they start deliveries, which is they haven't confirmed yet, but we expect it's sometime between now and May, they're gonna start deliveries, and that's only gonna be to the people that reserved during those 19 minutes, and then in May they're gonna start opening up orders for anyone right now that want one, and that might be a decent amount of people because it's a nice looking car at a decent price with all the Ultium technology that we talked about earlier. Um, it's gonna be a good test for Cadillac, because GM seems to be pushing for Cadillac to be some kind of flagship EV brand for them. Because after the Lyriq is the Celestiq that's coming too.
Celestiq, yeah.
Celestiq.
The Lyriq is a really interesting vehicle because, like, it's clear that they didn't, initially GM started with the Bolt, right? And that's obviously not a super high-end car. And then they, like, you can tell with the Hummer and the Lyriq and, the Celestiq eventually, that they've shifted their plan from the cheapest cars to the most expensive cars. Just a show note, we're going to have David come in after this next story. So,
Okay.
actually at the end. So,
All right.
after UPS, I'll let him know.
Okay. He's up late. All right. The Polestar also got a new vehicle in production, or actually in deliveries this week. So the Polestar 2, but with the single motor long range version. So actually with the single motor, it's more efficient and you get a longer range out of the vehicle. So the the EPA range is 270 miles on a single charge, which is this version. Scooter Dole from Electrek. He got a first drive in it. That in black looks pretty damn good.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah, it's a good looking car. You got the first drive in the vehicle, favorable impression. He hit the EP range on it, and you get a much more interesting starting price here at $45,900, so $46,000, which brings you to the price of the Model 3, basically of the base Model 3. Though, what's the range of the base Model 3?
uh, high 200s. But remember also, Polestar hasn't hit their
Oh
federal
yeah.
tax credit. You get 7,500 back, and then
So yeah,
you know,
basically the same range, 267.
yeah, it's
So
pretty fun.
the the Polestar's long range is Tesla's standard range, to be honest. But to be fair, but still, it's not as efficient of a vehicle. There's no doubt about that. But pricing wise, you cannot get better, like you said, with the 7,500. This is basically a $40,000 car, um,
A nice one.
and and these days, cost of operation, when you take that into account, it starts to become a very nice deal. You can go on the Electrek website to read Scooter's full impression of the long range rear wheel drive version of the Polestar. All right, we're gonna end the stories before going to David with the what's happening with the USPS fleet transition right now. This is a story that we've been covering for a year now, really, because if you remember last year, the postal services, things okay on your side. We keep getting some feedback.
Oh no, I think
Yeah, yeah, you
everything's
good? All right. Um, the USPS, the Postal Service, is in the middle of a program that they call, what do they call that program? The Next Generation Delivery Vehicle. It's a program to update their fleet with a $50,000 vehicle, $50,000, 50,000 units order, and they placed it last year with Oshkosh, a defense contractor in the U.S. And we were expecting, it was 2021, updating their fleet. Postal delivery vehicle, it's short routes, planned routes, so you know exactly the mileage every day. 2021, they have to be updating their fleet to electric vehicle. But then when they actually placed the order, they were like 50,000 vehicle, 10%, 5,000 of them are going to be electric. Obviously, it drew a lot of criticism from everyone with some common sense, basically. And there was a lot of pressure. Of course, this is a decision by a gentleman called Louis DeJoy, and the we people in the U.S. call Postmaster General. It's a strange title, and Mr. DeJoy is a controversial figure. He was appointed by Donald Trump, which that alone is enough to make you controversial, but his credentials were controversial too. The guy is the first postmaster general in decades to have no experience whatsoever at the postal service. He has experience in logistics company though, but that experience is also controversial because he has a shady past in those company with some dealings that are controversial, and he was also a Republican fundraiser, and there was some controversies in that too, where he I mean, any kind of political fundraising is kind of shady in my opinion, but his kind was a little sprinkle on top a little bit. So the guy, so with all the pressure since Biden administration took over, and Biden administration did a presidential executive order to move the federal fleet to electric vehicles, including, of course, the USPS is included in that. But since the contract was already placed, they couldn't actually reverse it completely. But from that pressure and the EPA also getting involved, because here's the thing: the Oshkosh vehicle that they're getting is barely more efficient than the one that the USPS is using right now, which dates back to 1988. It gets at 8.2 miles per gallon. The new vehicle, which is 40 years younger, gets 8.6 miles per gallon with AC, 14.7 without AC. Why we need to do the distinction is because the current ones don't have AC, so it's only 8.2. So now, when you don't need to have climate control, you're gonna be a lot more efficient. But I mean, in the summers or in the winter, they're gonna use that climate control. There's no doubt about it. If it's there, they're gonna use it. So you're gonna get like 0.4 miles per gallon better with those new vehicles. So there was this whole pressure happening in the last few months, and today or yesterday they actually announced that they updated the order with Oshkosh. Uh, to a stunning 10,000 electric vehicles instead. So they doubled the number of electric vehicles as part of the order. Uh, but people are still obviously disappointed that it's not going to be really. They could do the full order probably on electric vehicles. Uh, as part of the announcement yesterday, there was a mention that there's an option to increase the mix of BEVs. And the language here that they use, it should additional funding become available from internal or other sources, and if the use case of BEV continues to improve. So there's two part to that. The two factors are going to involve. They're saying that they don't have the money to buy BEVs. It sounds like so. There's a funding issue, which has never been exactly clear before. So they just brought that up right now. And also separately, that's nothing to do with money. They say that the BEV use case is not there, which is completely untrue. And that's not just from an EV fan here, but even the Inspector General's office did throughout this whole ordeal. They ordered a study of the routes from the USPS, and they found out that 99% of the routes currently being serviced by USPS can be done by electric vehicles. So that's completely untrue. And so it's all about the cost. Then that may be true. Like the USPS has had funding issues for years, but my understanding is that with the current gas prices, you probably cannot afford to not have electric vehicles, and not the other way around. So
Yeah, I agree with you. I wonder if they've even taken into consideration the whole total cost of ownership, return on investment, because the upfront cost is obviously going to be cheaper with a internal combustion, although it doesn't sound like much cheaper. It's funny to me though that they only went with this one company. They didn't usually government big
you split it
companies
up, yeah.
split it up into two, but it seems shady from the beginning. I'm surprised it's still happening at all. But
Yeah, it looks like it's set in stone with the contract. Like since they cannot like it looks just like a PR job right now to calm everybody down a little bit. Like oh we doubled the EV order, but there's not much they can do. There might be some investigations going on right now. There's several government officials have asked the SEC to look at some suspicious trades that happen to Oshkosh stock just before days before the announcement um, from the USPS about them receiving the order. And I mean, we cannot link that directly to the Joy, of course, but the Joy has had his own issues with investment since taking over the USPS, because he had to divest from a bunch of companies that are direct competitors with USPS. uh, and then as soon as he took over power, USPS, he started gutting the postal service. So it's strange when you have a big investor that had tens of millions of dollars in um, logistic companies that do the exact same job at USPS, and then he takes over. And the anyway, all right. Let's move on to a more joyful story. We have David here. Thanks a lot, David, for joining us. I know it's probably late right now where you are in Germany. Are you in Germany or Germany right now, David?
Yes, I'm in Germany.
Okay.
Hi, how are you?
Good. David was at Gigafactory Berlin this week for the launch event for the Model Y, the Made in Germany, Made in Europe Model Y. So I guess we already discussed it earlier on the show, like the announcement that Elon made and everything. But it would be good for us to get your like boots on the ground opinion of the event and how it went down and everything.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. Yeah, first of all, it was an event which was really had a lot of attention in Germany in terms of coverage and also politicians who were there. I guess you might have talked about it, but there was the German Chancellor. I was quite surprised that he was there actually. So that is like the President Biden would show up for the opening of Giga Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And
but bet on that.
Yes, and there was also the Vice Chancellor Robert Habeck, yeah. So of course all the state politicians from the state of Brandenburg, they were super proud that they finally achieved the opening of the factory. Took long enough, still quite fast for German standards, to be honest. But
yeah, that was a team that was getting from the German media. Like everyone, everyone here and probably in the Tesla community in Germany too, were like, it cannot happen soon enough. But from the broader German population, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, where people were like, "Wow, they did it in 2 years. That's actually pretty good."
Yeah, especially compared to the
that's quite good.
airport next door is like 12 years or something.
Yeah, exactly. And no, it was quite fast, and it was I mean, mostly thanks to Tesla, because they took all the risk by building the whole factory without a permit. So they just took the risk all on themselves, and of course they had the local support of the local government there, who were really fighting to get that through. And despite of all the red tape you always hear about Germany, they were really ambitious they had even a Tesla task force signed up for pushing this factory. And you could see in their faces how proud they were. There was the Minister of Economy from Brandenburg. He put off his tie at some point, and he put on a Tesla Gigafactory T-shirt. So like really Elon style, yeah. So over his white shirt, and he was just the happiest man on on earth, I felt. I was talking to him quickly, and yeah, they were super proud.
Yeah, but it felt like because you said you were surprised to see the chancellor there and everything. It felt to me like the Brandenburg officials were very much involved in the whole process. So it feels like they got the ball rolling and everything, and then now at the federal level they're coming down when everything is done. They're like, "Hey, good job, you got it done."
Yeah, of
It
course.
feels like that.
Of course. Yeah, of course, for sure.
Mhm.
And the politicians on the state level, I think they completely understood how important that is for their state, for the state of Brandenburg. When they had the press conference where they officially gave the permit to Tesla, or after they gave the permit to Tesla, they were saying it's like we won the lottery. That for them it's a lottery win, this factory, because they understand how much work this will bring to their area. And Tesla told us I did actually the factory tour. I was quite privileged to be with a small group of press people on the factory tour, and they told us there that already right now there are 3,500 people working in the factory, and which makes Tesla the third biggest company in the state of Brandenburg already.
Mhm. Yeah, and
And
they're aiming for like 12,000 or something like that.
yes, for the first phase, they said. So that is for this famous 500,000 cars capacity per year. They're going to be 12,000 people working at Tesla.
So you got a factory tour also during the what was it called, the Giga Fest? Yeah, I think so. Right?
Yes,
When
exactly.
was that?
Wow, that's a good question. That was in September
Uh,
or something. September, I think.
yeah. So, but okay. So anyway, how did you see a significant changes? And I would assume so, and because you did a tour there
Yes.
and a tour now.
I mean,
So how much changes did you see?
Yeah, the biggest difference is that right now the production is running, so it's way more busy. Back then at Gigafest, there were still some areas which were quite empty, or where you could see they just they show the production line, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And now it's finished, and you could just see everybody very busy, production line running, and it was great to see, actually. Very happy
Yeah, but
that I could see that.
did it give you any idea of the current production capacity at the factory, or how the ramp up is going to be like?
No,
They didn't share
they
any information.
were very careful of what they communicate. I mean, the biggest takeaway for me was maybe one number that I haven't heard before, and that was that the phase one for the Giga Berlin means also 50 gigawatt hours output of cells. So
Yeah.
that was a number that I didn't know before. I think it has, Toby Lind, that's a YouTuber who did a lot of drone footage from Giga Berlin, and he told me that it was apparently in the applications for
Yeah, I
the
think so.
factory, but yeah. And the second thing, which I was very surprised and happy to see, was that they already started building a second body line. So we have to be a bit careful here. It's not a second Model Y production line. but just a second line for the body assembly actually.
Okay.
And that wasn't something that was there at Gigafest at all. And I think Troy Teslac, that you know from Twitter, I'm sure, he thinks that it's for the 4680 cells actually.
Yeah, because they are producing the car now with the 2170, which is something that they weren't sure about the last time you were on for the after the Gigafest. They were still not sure. Now they confirm it's a 2170. Yeah, it could make sense. Yeah, that if they could need a new different body for the Model Y with the 4680. So was there any discussion about that? Of like where are they getting the cells now? And I assume that's too much in the weeds.
Yes, of
for
course. We asked. They said they didn't know actually, or they didn't want to share. They just said it finally doesn't really matter because of course the cells have the same, more or less the same specs, and so they were very careful of what to share and what not to share. But I think it's my personal opinion is they get the full packs from Shanghai, and yeah, that's where the packs come from now. And it was also very clear that there's not the structural battery pack happening right now. So the cars who come off the line are with the old way to build the car. And that was also something interesting they shared, is that in the stamping press, they will also make the frame for the 4680 batteries, for the battery pack. So that will be stamped there. And this will come in a couple of months, they said.
Oh yeah, so they did give somewhat of a timeline for when they're going to shift production to the structural battery pack.
Yes,
in a
but
few
very
months.
vaguely, and they said in a few months.
Yeah. I mean, that would make sense too. Elon also said in a few months they're going to start the new paint production, and so maybe they can, because that's been my thinking for a while now. So with Berlin, it does make sense that they don't need to sell a new car because it's the same configuration with the 2170 cells and everything. But for the new Model Y with the 4680 cells, and even when they're going to have new car colors and everything, they're going to have to put a new version of that on the website. Like, people are not, it's not like you buy right now a long range Model Y, and unless they can match the spec like perfectly to the current version, that would make sense. But I just don't see that happening. So for the new version, they're gonna have to start selling a new Model Y Berlin version that's made with the 4680 cells that gets, I don't know, a little bit more range, a little bit less range, a different price. I don't know. Same thing with Texas, which we haven't seen yet, despite being pretty close to production. It looks like, since the EPA of the what they're calling now the mid-range Model Y is coming out. So it's going to be something to keep an eye on from Berlin too when that comes out. Anything else that stood out from the event? It looks the moral. The people seem, the Tesla employees, the moral seems to be quite high. They were, well, obviously it's a big moment for them, but it's people seems enthusiastic about the prospect of working there.
Absolutely. It was awesome to see that. People were also very happy that it's starting now. Like, there were some people who were really moved by seeing the first production cars coming off the line. And the event itself was for the Tesla employees. It was not really. Of course, there were some people who got the first 30 cars, and they were able to bring some friends. There were some people from the Tesla Owners Club, or the German Tesla Owners Club, but it was mostly Tesla folks there. And it was just awesome to see that we were able to talk to some of them. And yes, they were saying like everybody's helping each other out, and the goal is for them to beat Shanghai. It's not Texas. I was tweeting something something like teasing a little bit Texas, Giga Texas, saying, "Hey, we beat you to market," but it's actually not about that. It's for them. It's to beat Giga Shanghai in output and ramp, and also in quality. They told us that Elon told them quality before quantity. That's the most important thing for them.
That would be new for Tesla. Uh, maybe for to fit with the German standards, which leads me to my last question. We talked about that a little bit last time you were on the show, but I think it's one of the most interesting part about your perspective here is that uh, the impact that having Tesla build the cars in Germany and maybe broader Europe, but of course from a German perspective here. Um, do you feel that it's starting to create more of a movement of like people being more interested in Tesla locally now that the cars are you can literally buy a German Tesla car now?
Yes, completely. And I think it's still the very early beginning. Last year Tesla sold just 40,000 cars in Germany. The year before, just 17,000, then 10, then 2 if you go further back. So they really start from scratch. Tesla had always a hard time in Germany because Germans love German cars, which is also kind of natural, I would say. And now they are a German car maker, and that's just brilliant strategy from Elon here. And of course, Germans start to get really excited, and I think the demand is just going through the roof. Also, if we regard the conflict a little bit in Ukraine with Russia, that is just accelerating the transition to electric cars. And I think, yeah, I don't know what your guess is how many cars they can build in Berlin this year, but the most sold car in Germany right now is still the Volkswagen Golf. They sold 91,000 units last year. And I think they can reach that with a Model Y next year.
Next year? Yeah, I think this year is still there's still going to be more Tesla vehicles sold in Germany from Shanghai than from Berlin. I would think. I think for this year, unless they have a flawless ramp up in production there, but I always assumed the worst. I think it's safer. But next year, yeah, I think that with the Model Y alone, yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know why it surprised me times and times again, and 10 of them in right now. I just reported today. If you look at and maybe that's a good question too for you in Germany if you've been following that. But if you look at the backlogs of order in the U.S., Model 3 you can get pretty fast right now in the U.S. Relatively fast within 2 to 4 months, depending on the version. The Model Y, though, if you want it in the US right now, if you are not willing to go with the full self-driving and everything, you're gonna have to wait until next year. It's pretty wild. Have you been following that with the German configurator? If how long it takes right now to get a Model Y or a Model 3?
Yeah, I mean, it depends a little bit. The Model Y, I think the performance version just shifted to June right now. It was April yesterday, I think. Still, but the wait times are getting longer and longer here. For the Model 3, they had to really raise the prices like 6,000 euros in 2 weeks ago, and I think they have really a demand problem, but in the good way. So I don't think that the price increases are already they're gonna take into account also the higher nickel prices and stuff like that, but I think it's mostly demand. And Model Y is, even if you look at the 40,000 cars units sold in Germany last year, there were only 4,000 Model Ys, 4,400 to be exact. And so we start from scratch here, and I think we're gonna see a very high demand for that.
Okay. Maybe one other last question. How's the perspective though in Germany of Tesla's full self-driving effort? Because I know that in Europe you have different regulations, so that it's kind of what we call NERF in English, the version of full self-driving, or the features that are included in full self-driving, which is or are often associated with autopilot features. Because I know that here the perspective is changing for some people with the beta, but with the prospect of the beta being far out, and I think Elon said that it's coming in the next few months, but like this timeline, like if it gets to Europe by the end of the year, I think you guys would be lucky.
Yeah.
So because I just right now I've seen a story that came out where a German court is forcing Tesla to reimburse a Model 3 owner who bought full self-driving package, but has been uh, he said he's been tricked into buying it because it doesn't do what Tesla said it would, which is a fair point at this point. So, how's the perspective on the full self-driving in Germany right now?
I think most of the people think it's far out because of EU regulations mainly, and it's really a pain point here in Germany because for Tesla drivers, because also autopilot is really not the same as in the US. It's much worse, unfortunately, and there are still some features like recognition of speed signs or something which doesn't work on the autobahn, or it's just turned out, it's switched off. Actually, it works. I think it would work, but they switched it off for some reasons, and so there's a lot of people who would like to have some more love from Tesla in terms of FSD or autopilot, and but the focus is the US and now Canada, but and we feel that here because we don't get any updates for that.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's going to come sooner than later, but next few months from Elon, I wouldn't trust that.
It was kind of interesting. Elon said that in the US, by default, things are legal, and then in Europe, by default, things are illegal, and that's kind of in regard to full self-driving and autonomy in general.
Yeah, that was quite a good summary, I think. But it's a EU issue as well. It's because they don't take care of this often enough. They just meet every 6 months, and it's just stuff that doesn't go fast enough. And so it's not even this for a change is not a German problem, I would say.
Yeah.
And
well, in Germany, you have also strong consumer protection laws. I think is like the story I just saw today that suing people is not new in the US either. it would happen, but the ruling sounded something like you wouldn't necessarily see in the US. But I thought it was interesting. But your perspective, your German's perspective, is always appreciated, David. David, thanks a lot for joining us late. I know it's late in Germany, so we apologize for bringing you out this late.
Worries.
We had ourselves had to change the time for the show this week. But can we have you back on next time there's big German news from Tesla?
Of course.
Perfect. Well, thanks a lot, David. Have a good one. We'll let you go to sleep. All right. Let's jump into the comments real quick. I know we have fewer ones this week because of the show was later, but do we have a few questions that we want to... Seth, you're muted. Seth, you're muted.
Yeah, we just have a few today. Let's see. Going up here. Is there a future for hydrogen fuel cell vehicles? It's from Dan Skofich.
Well, let's all respond separately. My answer is no for the most part. Maybe some boats, maybe some plane in the future, but in the future is always the thing with hydrogen. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's, for the mainstream things, batteries makes the most sense. But, for long range semis, there might be something. For airplanes, there might be something, boats, stuff like that.
Where are you at on hydrogen, David?
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna matter for cars, even for maybe semi trucks. I'm not sure about that. I think there are some good applications in the industry, steel production, for example, but not for transport.
Yeah, I agree too. Is that it for this week? We had
I accidentally deleted some of the questions, so sorry about that, everyone.
All right. Well, that's it, everyone, for this week's episode of the Electrek Podcast. Thanks for David for joining us. Thanks, Seth. Thanks, everyone who's been listening. If you like the show, please give us a thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm for some reason. You can also leave a review for the show. We appreciate those too. And we're going to see you same time, same place. Well, not same time, actually. We're going to go back to our regular 4 p.m. next week. Seth's going to be back in New York. But that's it. Have a good one. Bye-bye.